Hey everybody, Katie Sutton here, intuitive channel and founder of Zen Within Academy and the New Earth Now School with your March 2025 energy update. I've got 4 themes I'm going to share with you this month. It is going to be a big month, my friends. I hope you are ready for some major transformation because that is what's going to happen in the month of March. All right, so let's dive in. So in March, astrologically, not even the energetic themes that I want to talk with you about, but the astrological themes are pretty crazy. We have some major stuff happening. We've got Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, and then we've got the first of 2 eclipses, the second of which will happen right at the beginning of April. And those are all energies coming together to be a whammy, if you will, of transformation and change. And the themes that have come in this month are all super, super important. And I'm really excited to say that in my healing circles now, they're going to expand to an hour and a half long. And not only am I going to be bringing through healing on one topic, but it will be on all 4 topics because we are moving through things so quickly now and everything is so interlinked that the guides have shared with me that I need to expand my scope of what I'm working with you all on and cover all of the energies. So if there's anything in this update that really resonates with you that you feel like you need support on, then I encourage you to join us. This is going to happen on March 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern now. And it's going to include a light language activation, some channeled teachings, and at least 2 channeled activations now. So I'm excited to be shifting that a little bit and expanding how I am supporting you all going into these transformative energies of March and going forward. Let's talk a little bit about the themes, okay? Because we've got some pretty interesting things happening energetically this month outside of the astrology. So the first theme that I want to talk with you about is healing the witch or heretic wound. And when this one started coming in, I have been a little flabbergasted as I have started to see this come in my sessions in the last few days. And I have been working on witch wounds and heretic wounds with pretty much all of my clients. And this isn't something that I have never seen before, but the degree to which we are closing out this fear of being in our truth and standing up for truth and being in our authentic expression and all of the persecution energy that has come from so many different lifetimes where we have been punished for that is a crazy amount of energy that we are closing out this month. And I'm glad kind of that we have an eclipse coming because when we have eclipses, we often have major timeline shifts. And I, for one, am ready for this witch and heretic energy where we have been wounded by being truth speakers. I'm ready for that to clear out. So we are going to be doing some throat chakra work in a big way this month. Some of you might have already been feeling that leading into March where you're moving through some changes in your cervical and thoracic spine. That's how it's been showing up for me. And you might be getting called to speak up and speak truth into places where maybe previously you could have avoided it. And of course, the witch wound, I think a lot of you are very familiar with. It speaks for itself. This idea that over the years, women have been labeled as witches and have been miscategorized in their use of what I would call earth magic, if you will, where they have been healers and helpers and they have been called witches and been burned at the stake and all of the things with that. But the other half of this, and this is maybe the masculine version of it that I see that we're also clearing, is the heretic wound. And this is the person, whether it be male or female, that speaks into power and speaks truth into power and speaks something counter to the party line or the overarching belief that the majority has. And I think a lot of us are going to continue to be called up to speak truth into these things that we are seeing and that we are witnessing and really hold that and not be afraid to own that in a way where we are in our compassion for people having other opinions, but really not being afraid to use our voices. So I, for one, am really looking forward to seeing how as we clear these energies in these past lives where we have experienced persecution in the face of truth, that enables us to be able to stand up and make some changes on this planet as individuals who maybe see that there are other ways that we could be operating that we are currently not experiencing as a collective. So this is going to be a big month, and it won't probably just show up on the world stage level and the collective level about people using their voice, which I do think we're going to see see more protests and more people speaking out against some decisions that are being made. But I also think at an individual level, you all are going to find specific places where you're realizing that you're not speaking your truth and using your voice in the way that you could. And it's going to create some significant change. One of the things that I often see with clients is that when they are willing and able to have the really hard conversations in their lives and speak truth into things, that the energy can shift very quickly. And on the other side of this, and this is interesting, this is something that I'm going to be clearing with folks in my next resourced class on Monday. I'm seeing that we're breaking vows, meaning things that we've maybe been saying as a truth for ourselves, things that we've been acting into that have been a truth for us that we've almost created as an energetic vow in our field. And we're going to be clearing those in the month of March and stepping out of places where we have limited our reality because we have thought a particular way of being or a particular choice is the only choice. And an example of that is maybe you have had a belief that you can only be safe if you work for someone else, that starting your own business or moving forward on your own isn't safe. And you've had that as a belief for so long that it's almost become an energetic vow in your frequency field that is creating your whole reality, and your whole reality is orienting around that. We're going to be breaking some vows this month that we have set that are limiting us in our evolution as individual souls. And I'm excited about that too. I think that's going to be important work. Then I'll probably bring some clearing in on that into the healing circle as well. So let's talk about the second theme, okay? The next one, and this is a really beautiful one that I'm encouraged by, is empathy as a superpower. And I have talked a lot over the years, and so have the guides, about how important it is as way showers and light workers and sensitives that we own our empathy and we own our deeply feeling nature, and that we allow people to see us in that. And just recently, I personally have had some new levels of awareness and downloads about how powerful our empathy really is when we claim it in a way where we're not in a wounded sense of our empathy. And I can see that we need this in the world right now. We need to have a different template of what being a leader and what being in power means. And we need people to stand up and hold their empathy as an energetic truth that says that this is also powerful, and that we can be compassionate and be beings that have empathy, and that we can still create change and we can move forward as a collective. And last month, one of the themes that we worked on was bringing strength to our vulnerability and vulnerability to our strength. And so one of the things that I see that we'll be clearing in the month of March is any story that says that we are in maybe a disempowered place, or we are weak if we are feeling. And I've said this to you all before. I can at least remember saying this one other time in recent years, that the most powerful experiences that I've ever had are when I drop deeply into my empathy and my feeling being, and I allow myself to have that full experience, and I alchemize that, and that becomes personal power, and that becomes energy that I can then harness to move forward in my experience. And I think this is something that we are all going to be called up to begin to do. What I'm noticing is that we are in this Venus retrograde cycle going to be looking at connection and looking at how we connect with ourselves. And from that place of deep connection with self, how we then decide to connect with those around us. And if we are not operating in connection with our empathetic aspects and our feeling aspects, that connection is always going to be limited. In order to drop into deep connection, we have to be deeply feeling beings. That doesn't mean that we become snowed under by it and we are wounded in it and we are disempowered in it. It just means that we see that these feelings are valid and we allow them to move through us, and we allow that to be expressed so that others can connect through that same frequency of feeling tone with us. And so I do see that we're going to be shifting how we look at these vulnerable, soft, empathetic parts this month, and we're going to be bringing love to them and bringing them closer and seeing how they can serve us and seeing how they can bolster us as we move forward. Because part of being an empathic being and seeing that sensitivity is expanding our ability to feel not just the difficult things, but also the really positive things. And I have been noticing with a lot of my clients that we've been operating in this very narrow range of feeling and expression and connection, and that we are yearning as individuals and as a collective for an expanded sense of connection and feeling tone, so that we can start to be more fulfilled as human beings and experience more joy and experience more connection overall. So we're going to stop moving in this very narrow band and start to expand our sensitivity and expand our ability to connect in these ways. And as I see this, I feel like this is the people that are going to lean into this are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. And I know that we're not seeing that on the world stage right now. I know we're probably seeing anything but. And so the tendency is for us to allow our empathetic nature to become overwhelmed and for us to just turn it off and shut it down because we're overwhelmed. We have to move beyond that. If we don't move beyond that, we're never going to be able to create a different world where those of us who are sensitive feeling beings can be at the forefront of creating the change. We have to find a way to be empowered in our empathy. So if you are somebody who has called yourself too sensitive or too much, or you've been told that you're too much of a deeply feeling being, now is the time to work through that shame and guilt and move in a different direction where you are claiming a higher light in this connection to your empathy. And I am so excited for this one because I feel like it is high time that we step into the forefront of being leaders on this planet and change makers, and do it in a way where we're not afraid to be seen in our sensitivity. And I'm excited because I'll be bringing that through in a workshop coming up on the 8th as well, where we're working on narcissistic wounding. The byproduct of healing narcissistic wounding is to be an empowered empath. So if you're looking for extra healing on that and you're in the Charlotte area, I have a workshop coming up on that on March 8th. I'll put that below this video as well. And of course, we'll talk about that and cover it in Healing Circle at a high level too. All right, so let's talk about the third theme. So I mentioned that Venus is in retrograde, which means it looks like Venus is going backwards, which is basically a time for us to reevaluate and look really closely at our relationships in a new way. What I am seeing, because we have so many Piscean energies going on as well, is that we're going to be looking at the difference between expectations and reality in our relationships. And so very practically, this looks like you seeing that you have an expectation of how you want to be connected with, how you want to be in partnership, how you want to be in friendship. And you're going to look at those parts of you that are asking to have deeper connections or asking to be met in a certain way. You're going to love them and bring them back. And as you do that, you're going to create some space for any of those maybe overpowering expectations that you've placed on others to be drawn back and reevaluated, where you can actually look and say, okay, this is how I would like to connect with this person. This is what I'm capable of doing in connection. And you can see through a lot of clarity and cut through a bunch of illusion to say, does this person have the capacity to meet me there? Or do they have the desire to have the capacity to meet me there? And I think that this is going to be like having some cold water splashed on our faces a little bit this month. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I think some of us have been operating in relationals and we have not been operating in reality. And so what's going to get us through this is our ability to continue to have these desires for the way that we want to connect and the way that we want to be met in relationship, and meet ourselves there first and foremost, while continuing to ask for what we need and listening really carefully to where the other person is and whether or not they can match that frequency in that moment, and whether or not they have a desire, if there's part of them that wants to meet us in that frequency in that moment. And if neither of those things are true, we then have to say, okay, I got to dial back my expectations here, because this person really is giving me very clear signals that they don't have the capacity to meet me in the way that I need to be met. And I need to be open to making connections with other people that might be able to meet my needs in that way. Okay, so this also, I think, is going to be some clearing around maybe some tendency to be codependent, or in a place where we are putting too much pressure on one person, putting all of our eggs in one basket, or even just where we are externalizing some needs for validation and not operating and taking care of ourselves first and foremost. I think that this is going to clean some things up in your relationship space this month as you navigate this one. Like I said, it might be painful to witness and say, oh my gosh, this person, I've thought that they had the capacity to meet me there and they just really don't. It might be painful to witness that and see that, but I do think it's going to help you to reset and shore up some wounded heart aspects and do some healing work, and then open the door to new connections. So I know a lot of you have been working on loneliness and separation and feeling like you have been disappointed a lot by connection. I think this is the month where we heal some of those really deep wounds and we start opening the door. And I do think that overall, one of our overarching themes of March is just this idea of connection and up-leveling across the board with that. I really feel like this theme and all the others are going to support us with that this month. So when Venus is in retrograde, we also sometimes have people coming back that we haven't talked to in a while. We have relationships that we thought were complete resurfacing for us to get to say, is this going to be good for me or not? Do I want to go back down this path, or do I want to allow it to close out completely? And because we also have Mercury retrograde starting the middle of March, we have two energies of retrograde that are asking us to close out incomplete things. And I suspect that's going to be a lot around relationship this month. And we're going to close some major cycles out, which I'm excited about. I think that's going to be a very positive thing to give us some forward momentum, both as individuals and as a collective, as we move into the month of April. The last theme that I want to just touch on, and this one sounds really dramatic, it's the culmination point. And this is something that I have been seeing just starting to bleed in as dropping into the energies of March and starting to hold space for what's coming through this month. It's this feeling of a major tipping and culmination point. And I think that this is going to happen at the collective level too. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I sure hope that it's something that is going to propel us into a timeline of deeper connection. I know ultimately it will, because that's what we're moving towards, but I hope it can be as painless as possible. But I also think on an individual level, we are going to be closing out some chapters that have existed for us as souls for so many lifetimes. I had a session the other day with a woman, and I was just struck by this pattern that she was working on. It happened to be a witch wound, and how that had just been present with her for so many lifetimes, and how it had colored so many of her soul's experiences. It was woven into the very fabric of her soul, and how she was closing out that story and that lesson as a soul, and how her whole being was going to be reborn on the other side of this, because that one thread was being pulled completely out and then new energy was coming in. And when we have eclipses, that's really what it's like. They're major shifts in our reality. And I'm excited because I feel like as we get to this culmination point this month, whatever that looks like for us as individuals, there's something that we've been working on as a soul for so many lifetimes that we are finally going to reach some closure with and find a new beginning on the other side. And this is the heart of 2025 energy. We have a 9-year, a completion year, the culmination point. And I think I told you all in January that I felt like this year wasn't really going to start until March. That January and February was still us trying to finish out everything that we tried to pack into 2024. And so if you've been in a holding pattern, or you've been feeling stuck, or you've been feeling stagnant, I feel like March is the month where this is going to all shake up and shake loose. And there's going to be some major intuitive awareness that you're going to have about what's closing out and how it can move forward how you can move forward in your life. And so pay attention to the common threads or common themes that you might be seeing in all the parts of your life, in your relationship, in your work, and how you're taking care of your body and your health, in your spiritual practices. There's probably going to be something that is a thread that weaves through. It might be rejection energy, it might be abandonment, it might be this theme around persecution and not being able to be in your truth. It might be something else entirely, but I think it's going to be popping up in a lot of places. The whack-a-mole, trying to get your attention, because this is the thread that you have an opportunity this month in this eclipse cycle to close out completely. And that is exciting. That is, talk about timeline jump, talk about massive growth potential if we so choose. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to say yes. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to actually do the work to look at those hard things. Eclipses, especially the first eclipse, which is the lunar eclipse, are about us looking at the shadow and looking in those unseen places. We still have to do the work to see it. We still have to do the work to be with it and to feel it, but we can find some completeness this month that I'm very happy to see coming, because I think a lot of us are going to feel some weight lifted off of our shoulders as we move into the month of March and then continue to move forward into the summer. Okay. So we also, of course, have our, here in the Northern Hemisphere, spring equinox, lots and lots of energy for newness this month. So ground, take care of yourselves, pace yourselves, get support, have community as a part of how you're connecting this month. I think we're going to really be working on connection, so make sure community time is involved. Show up to something that I'm offering in community. Come together with people of like mind so that you feel supported. And for goodness sakes, understand that what is happening at the top of the house in the collective, in our politics and our government, is a reflection of this inward shift that we are also making. And so you have a choice. Do you try to control what's happening at the top of the house that you have literally no control over? Or are you going to not let that distract you and drop into taking care of you and showing up as the best human that you can, and then making connections with other humans so that we can learn how to support ourselves through empathy, connection, and empowerment with one another? So that's what we have going on this month. It's big. It is a lot. Please join me in Healing Circle so you can get some support so that we can all be in this together. That's going to be on Wednesday, March 12th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, we're going to do a lot more starting in these healing circles going forward. We're going to cover all the themes and all the energies, and you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck in those. And then on March 8th, I have a very special Healing Narcissistic Wounding workshop that's coming up as well. That's happening at Bright Haven Farm in Huntersville, so check that out. And then we also have some spots left in our trip to Peru that's happening later in July. Lots of offerings for you to get connected with me and my partner as we support you in different ways through the month of March. So have a great month, everyone. Hang in there. Ground, take good care of yourselves. Your health and your well-being is your top priority. You're the only one that can handle that. So take good care, and I will see you soon.